Hello, and thanks for tuning into the show that goes around the continent to bring you stories near and far. I'm Joke Rogers at Channels Television here in Lagos, and I'm joined by Vincent McCory from the Voice of America in Washington.
Thanks, I'm Vincent McCory at the Voice of America. Happy to be with you again for another edition of Africa 54. Let's start off with the latest from Nigeria. Joke Rogers in Lagos brings you that story.
The National Emergency Management Agency, in collaboration with the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, have donated food baskets to 2,250 households affected by flooding and Boko Haram insurgency in Yobe State in northeast Nigeria. At the presentation to the beneficiaries in Maimala community, a satellite village in Damaturu, the state capital, the state government pledged fair distribution of the items to the most vulnerable persons. These are shanties in Maimala village, a satellite community in Damaturu, the Yobe state capital. Housed within are internally displaced persons affected by the 2022 flood disaster and the Boko Haram insurgency. And to help alleviate their suffering, as well as other vulnerable persons in the state, the National Emergency Management Agency is handing over 2,250 food baskets to the state, starting with Maimala village.
We are here to flag off the distribution of relief food items donated by our partners from the Royal Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, specifically from King Salman Humanitarian Aid and Relief Center, KS Relief. The National Emergency Management Agency has been collaborating with the center in distribution of relief assistance to our people that have been impacted by natural and human-induced disasters.
The state government pledges fair distribution of the items to the most vulnerable persons across the affected communities.
His Excellency, the Executive Governor of Yobe State, Horam Malabuni, is welcoming you to Yobe State and has assured King Salman Relief Center and NEMA that the food basket targeting 2,250 households containing 25 kg of rice, 25 kg of beans, and a condiment with 2 vegetable oil, tomato paste, seasoning, masa flour, and salt will reach the beneficiary as targeted and profiled earlier.
While the beneficiaries expressed their gratitude for the aid, they thanked the Yobe and Saudi governments for coming to their aid during their fasting period. The village head also solicits for the construction of a primary school and a dispensary in the settlement.
What I want in this settlement is a school, dispensary, and completion of our mosque, which is at lintel level, because we observe our prayers under the sun.
We are grateful for the provision of food basket. We will not sell them, but use them in our homes.
The food donation to the vulnerable persons affected by natural disasters and insurgency will no doubt assist the IDPs, especially as the rainy season sets in. Let's get more on this, and joining us on the program is the Commissioner for Humanitarian Affairs and Disaster Management in Yobe State, Dr. Garba Iliya. Thank you so much for joining us today on the program.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yobe is one of the states that has been ravaged by the 2022 flooding. How severe was the flood in your state?
First of all, let me say the severity of the flood in 2022 was very high in Yobe State. It's so high that His Excellency Honorable Maimala Buni, the Executive Governor of Yobe State, described it as one of the devastating floods that ever occurred in Yobe State. The flood actually affected all the 17 local government areas of Yobe State. The level of devastation is such that it has affected about 35,000 households across Yobe. The agency responsible for emergency management in the state has identified a total of about 74 people that died during the flood in 2022. It was close to 91,000 people injured. It is also estimated that over 30,000 hectares of farmlands were affected by the flood. This is to tell you the level of devastation of the flood in 2022 in Yobe State.
As a government, what have you done in terms of providing both long and short-term, palliatives to alleviate the sufferings of the affected persons?
The government, in its response, started by first evacuation of victims to temporary shelters, provided some medical and psychological support to the people. Provision of food and non-food items were also top in the agenda. Then this was followed by some infrastructure livelihood assistance, including grants to some affected vulnerable people. A whole community was relocated to a safer ground because of the effect of this devastation by the flood of 2022. And this location is in Bujuba local government area, the local government of the governor himself.
In the last 1 year, how many vulnerable persons have so far been reached with humanitarian interventions?
Based on vulnerability mapping of Yobe State across the local government areas and other communities, about 180,000 households were supported. These also include the households that are affected by disasters, the group of orphans, the people living with disabilities, the Almajiri group were all supported. And this falls within the 180,000 households I'm talking about. Details of such this can be found in our data bank in the state.
Well, it seems like a year goes by so fast and another rainy season is around the corner. What's your state government doing to ensure that the flooding situation does not cause another threat to residents, especially those living along riverbanks?
Thank you very much. This is an apt question. The Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs and Disaster Management in Yobe State is quite aware of the NIMET predictions for 2023 and also the annual flood outlook of the Hydrological Services Agency of the Ministry of Water Resources. What the state government is doing now is to start or continue with the sensitization of all relevant MDS, ministries, departments, and agencies, and other stakeholders on the need to maintain our roads, our drainages, and the environment itself. So advocacy to all the local government areas and the communities are currently ongoing. And so therefore, the development of disaster preparedness, mitigation, as well as recovery, rehabilitation action plans are really underway.
Commissioner for Humanitarian Affairs and Disaster Management in Yobe State, Dr. Garba Iliya, thank you for your time today on Africa 54.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
We want to know what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we cover. Join the conversation on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. And check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. After the break, investing in the growth of Sudan farms. With 75% of the country's farmland going unused, solutions may be complex. Welcome back to Africa 54. I'm Vincent McCory in Washington. In February visit to Sudan, the head of the UN World Food Program said 75% of the country's farmland goes unused. But with the help of investors, Sudan can go from receiving food aid to exporting food. But as Henry Wilkins reports from Khartoum, others say it's more complicated than that.
A video from United Nations World Food Programme Executive Director David Beasley has sparked debate online over whether Sudan could indeed boost output from its unused arable land.
This is a country that has 210 million acres of arable land and only 25% of it is being used. But if we can get the private sector in here, working with the smallholder farmers, while we can grow the food we need, not just feed just Sudan, but actually feed the whole world.
Last month, Sudan saw record levels of food insecurity, according to the UN. The idea that it could feed itself and other countries in a region struggling not only with droughts but also with grain shortages caused by the conflict in Ukraine might seem far-fetched. Experts tell VOA that making use of the unused land is more complicated than Beasley implies.
My first reaction to the video was that it sounded like if the solution is straightforward and is simple. And from my experience, I think the issues are more complex and more nuanced than that.
He went on to cite the need for better infrastructure and better regulation. Financial transactions from abroad are also difficult because of the sanctions on the country. Some investing in Sudan told VOA that risk due to political instability are also a problem. While the United Arab Emirates and China have invested, the risk profile for Western companies is too high, they said. For their part, smallholder farmers say they would welcome any investment. Ahmed Salam Mohammed Al-Helu says it would transform his business.
If you gave me money, I would expand my business. If I had enough money, I would plant vegetables that were impossible for me before. I'd buy new land.
Abdullah Mohammed El Amin, a retired agricultural scientist turned smallholder, says private sector investment could bring big benefits.
Farmers here used to do something as they know their knowledge is not sufficient. But if they find investment, they will follow the right way and they will do better.
It is up to the government to make legislative reforms, says Yahya Omar Adam, director of the Institute of Environmental Studies at the University of Khartoum. He says some neighbouring countries have managed to do that well.
We have a good example of our neighbour Ethiopia. I think there is external or internal investment in agriculture, and they are very successful. I think that is a good lesson for us to learn.
Functions of the state in Sudan are said by experts to be at a standstill as a military junta that took power in 2021 keeps a stranglehold on power while showing little interest in governing. Henry Wilkins for VOA News, Khartoum, Sudan.
Some source of sorghum quota.
Inspired by the famous Paris-Dakar rally, organizers of the Senegal race wanted to create an event where women and men could compete on an equal footing. Now, Fatouma Ba, who started racing 2 decades ago, can say she races men and wins.
Cheered on by her family, driver Fatoumata Ba raises her arms in triumph after winning an amateur motor drag race in Dakar that saw 4 men and 4 women competing for first place. Earlier, pairs of drivers in small Peugeot hatchbacks had raced to make the best time on a makeshift track at the old airport in Dakar, part of the capital's first so-called Dakar Grand Prix in late February.
Usually they say women at the wheel, dead at the corner, which is an old adage. And today, I proved that that was not the case. And tomorrow, I'll do it again. I was first, and Nafisa came third. So the women didn't lose out. Being a woman or a man doesn't mean anything. This is the 21st century. Girl power.
Ba and other female drivers, one of whom placed third, are keen to challenge gender stereotypes in sometimes socially conservative Senegal and elsewhere.
I dedicate this trophy to my father and my husband, who have always supported me in this passion, which is usually reserved for men. This race is much more for the underprivileged children, for the needy children, who need to smile and hope. This cup is to show them that everything is possible in life. With courage and perseverance, you can do it. I am happy.
Ba started racing 20 years ago after her father encouraged her to share his interest in cars. Her husband, mechanic Sheikh Tidian Batley, is also her coach.
What I feel in these moments is pride for me and joy for her, because I know this is something she loves. To have won after all the effort it took, Frankly, it was very satisfying. I acted nice because there were other guys there, telling everyone that she's my wife. It makes you proud.
Ba donated her winnings to the SOS Children's Village organization, where she's worked since quitting banking.
Nairobi's public buses and vans called matatus and their custom graffiti brighten the busy streets of Nairobi. The idea is the glitzer the vehicle design, the more customers it will attract. Huba Abdi has this report from the capital, Nairobi.
Michael Macharia grew up in a low-income part of northern Nairobi. When he was young, he started making graffiti on public surfaces like walls and bridges. Now, he paints the public transport vehicles called matatus and employs more than 10 young graffiti artists.
It was hard at the beginning before people accepted it. It was seen as an evil thing because people were painting awkward things. It took time before it was accepted, because of the system and technology and because people have different tastes. But eventually it became a business like any other business.
Matatu owners sometimes pay up to $1,000 for his artwork. He says the more colorful the matatus, the more customers.
What we paint is what is happening in our daily lives. There are movies, games, music. It depends on someone's taste. Some clients want you to draw their picture. Others don't have a design, so you give them a design. You have to be flexible.
In 2021, the Grammy-winning rapper Cardi B caught a glimpse on Twitter of a Kenyan matatu bearing her portrait. Cardi B gave it a shout-out, tweeting, "America is boring. They need buses like this." These days, the market has expanded. Now, motorcycle taxis in Nairobi, known as boda bodas, have adopted the culture. Joseph Mukoya is a graffiti artist who paints boda bodas.
Pale stage, you can find like 10 to 20 bikes.
When you go to the bike parking place, you can find 10 to 20 bikes with only red, black, and blue. Those are the main colors, only those three colors. We started thinking how we can make them unique.
Boda Boda operator Caleb, who didn't give his last name, says painting his vehicles helps him attract more customers.
When customers come, they can choose me instead of the other one because they love how attractive my bike is. It looks beautiful.
Last year, Nairobi Governor Johnson Sakaja said that he will soon introduce awards for the best matatus and that the judging process will consider the quality of their art. For Huba Abdi in Nairobi, Kenya, this is Michelle Joseph, VOA News.
The Grannies Soccer World Cup is the first of its kind, hosted by South Africa's Wakagula Football Club. Formed in 2007 to try to improve the health of the local grannies. The news of its success has spread, and the club has inspired the birth of other granny soccer teams and leagues across the region.
Sporting red jerseys and matching cleats, the Grannies of South Africa's Vakekula soccer team jump for joy as one of their own scores a deciding goal against a team visiting from the United States. An adoring crowd of hundreds erupts with applause. It's the first day of the Grannies International Football Tournament in Limpopo Province, and this team, like the others, is made up of women aged 55 and above. Vakekula means grandmother in the Songa language spoken in South Africa. Flora Baloy, 66, started playing in 2017 after suffering from severe arthritis.
At this age, at my age, I think if I was not in this sport, I should have been confined in a wheelchair. I strike physical and inside me, so a lot of toxins come out of me when I am striking.
Now she says she no longer needs medication as the exercise keeps her physically and mentally fit. When not practicing with the team, she watches soccer on television with her husband and spends time with her 5 grandsons.
Lord Jesus, hello.
The 4-day tournament is seeing 32 teams compete, including 9 from South Africa and 23 from abroad.
We love it. It means so much to us. It's a community, makes us healthy, and we know that they want that same thing. So we are so excited to be here to meet all the people in Africa.
Wearing blue track suits and waving their national flag, the ladies of Vakekula jog into the stadium to cheers ahead of their match against Team USA. Teams from other countries carrying flags of their own aren't far behind. Those who travel the farthest, however, are the teams from France and the United States.
A sports group in South Africa is encouraging more women to not only play basketball, but also coach the game. African Grassroots Hoops runs a basketball leadership academy for young women with the lofty goal of getting a basketball in the hands of every young African. Vicky Stark reports from Cape Town.
23-year-old Shanice Goliath earns a living coaching basketball. She's having a bit of fun with friends and family before heading off to coach in the upmarket suburb of Sea Point. Goliath says she decided to coach 6 years ago after being selected by African Grassroots Hoops to go to Washington, where she and 10 other young women ages 13 to 21 participated in a leadership program funded by the U.S. State Department.
We had we would go to workshops and stuff, and then they said like, what do you want to do when you get back? Like, what are you going to give back to the community? So I decided I want to start coaching.
She grew up in Heideveld, a rough neighborhood in Cape Town, South Africa, where gangsterism and drugs are rife.
And being inside the basketball hall, it always like takes everything away from like whatever's going on outside. That's like a blockage for me. It just take me away. It's like my happy place, basically.
No balance. You can't finish a shot.
Sibongile Sophile, 19, is also a product of the African Grassroots Hoops coaching program for girls and young women. She says her mission is to help kids see that basketball can change their lives.
The friends that I grew up with, most of them are pregnant. Some of them are dropped out. They dropped out of school. Some of them, they've been in prison and came back. So I was like, okay, I'm the only person who's doing the right thing here. So I need to be an example to my friends.
African Grassroots Hoops was started in 2014 by South African Vincent Ntunja, the assistant coach of the Cape Town Tigers of the Basketball Africa League, and American Giovanni Freeman.
We decided if we can develop you as a leader, then it would go way beyond the basketball. So basically what we're doing is we're giving them a support system. We're doing everything we can to open their eyes to a bigger world and opportunity in the basketball world and beyond.
He says basketball on the continent is growing, bringing many opportunities. The group will be hosting the Youth Day Classic basketball tournament at the prestigious Cape Town International Convention Centre in June. Some of the young women will be coaching and others working as project managers. Vicky Stark for VOA News, Cape Town, South Africa.
Well, and that's our show for today. You can find all the continent's top news and world news online at voaafrica.com. Check it out. I'm Vincent McCory in Washington. Channels Television has our last word.
We look forward to bringing you another show next week. To remember that channelstv.com is your source for news and other programming. I'm Joke Rogers. Thanks for watching and goodbye.